assessing an industry from the career standpoint is different from assessing an industry from a general standpoint. There are 8 dimensions to it. Mr. T. Muralidharan shares his insights on it.
See, traditionally all industries are classified based on the products and services that the industry offers. For example, fertilizer industry. What does fertilizer industry mean? It produces fertilizers, various types of fertilizers. Similarly, automobile industry, when you say it produces automobiles. So normally the classification is based on the products and services that is available or made in the industry. But from career standpoint, that is not the dimension. The dimensions are very different from when it comes to careers. So I have, based on my research and my experience, I have identified mostly 8 dimensions on which the industry must be analyzed and categorized. I'll explain all 8 of them, and please understand each of them are important, and a lot of research goes into, and you need to research at some point of time on some of these dimensions when you make a choice. The first one is growth. What do you mean by growth? Industry growth. How fast is the industry growing, right? For example, today everybody knows that the fastest growing industry now in the country is one of the IT, and in IT itself we talk about industries and cyber security, for example, is very high growth. Now, the growth dimension means what? When the industry is growing very fast, the first consequence is talent shortage. I mentioned to you earlier, if there's a talent shortage, the salary shoots up in the industry. So, ultimately, the first dimension of industry growth has a direct impact on compensation and your career growth. The second is the pay dimension. Some industries by nature are better pay masters, right? Therefore, the compensation levels in general are much higher. Now, let's take an example of this lawyer fraternity. Today, if you go to some of the campus students coming from Nalsar, for example, they are one of the highest paid. Their salary levels sometimes are higher than IIT students, primarily because the corporate law or the industry of legal industry pays extremely well. Consulting industry pays extremely well. So these are some examples of the level of compensation in the industry by per se is very high. Now, it's also possible the compensation may not be uniform. There are some industries pay compensation very well initially, but tapers off. Some industries pay compensation throughout. So the compensation growth also is not one single. Whether it's the compensation growth may be throughout the 20-30 years or in the initial period is also another dimension. Third is competition. Some industries are extremely competitive. Now, what does it mean? More the competition is, your work-life balance will be tough because you'll be traveling, you'll be working very hard, you'll be working late evenings. On the other hand, the higher the competition also good for you as an industry, because the talent shortage also is there. The talent is being chased by the same set of players, and therefore, highly competitive industries, people who are good performers take off very well. Second is the competition for the managerial talent may be different from entry level. This is also important. The competition in the industry determines, for example, biotechnology industry. It's a new industry. So what happens initially, a lot of people are joining now, but there are no middle managers. So there will be a shortage of middle managers. Whoever takes off in the beginning period to the middle management, they'll see phenomenal compensation. So the third dimension is competition in the industry. And the fourth is ownership. This is very important. Now, some industries have a large number of MNCs, multinational companies in the industry. By nature, by default, most of the multinationals bring higher level compensation. For example, in India, the telecom industry was set very high standards of compensation when they entered, even as early as 93, 94, because MNCs came and invested in them. So if there is a industry is full of MNCs or large number of MNCs, then that's good for your career growth. It's a good dimension for career point of view. The fifth one is work culture. This determines your stress levels, your work-life balance, right? Some industries by definition are largely professionally managed, and some of them are proprietary managed. What does it mean by professional management? Professional management means that when you work in that industry, by and large, most of the companies have professional managers, they have a board of directors, and there is a very structured way of working, right? So your risk of work stability, employment stability is much higher in a professional managed companies as long as you do well. The fifth dimension is work-life balance. I spoke about it. Today, the standard norm in the industry as you grow in some of the industries are 12-hour shifts. There is not 8-hour shifts. So you cannot go to some industry, even for example in retail banking industry. You ask anybody in operations in any of the bank, they all go to office around 8:30, 9:30 and stay on till 7:30, 8, 9. So many of them are 12-hour shifts, right? So work-life balance is definitely very, very characteristics of the industry, right? Then the some of them work on weekends. So many people ask, do I get a 2-day weekend? You got a some people have 6-day weeks. So you have only 1 day weekend off for you. So the work-life balance is also varies from industry to industry. The sixth dimension is regulatory. Classic example of regulatory which really impacted them, one is telecom. Many of you may not be aware that Supreme Court interfered or entered and made specific cancellation of licenses for telecom industry, and it went down the tailspin. Today, telecom industry is not an attractive place for many of the investment to come. Many big companies are struggling because of regulation. Supreme Court and regulators have entered, and that has made a significant impact. So you should also look at how regulated that industry is, right? The last one is the future. Now, whatever I spoke about, they're all as of now. What's the current status? The seventh dimension is, where is the industry going? For example, in my mind, one of the fastest, most exciting place to work is biotech, because everybody is talking about how the pharma industry will change because of biotech, how medical devices will be changing. So biotech is becoming a very exciting place because the future is far better than present. If there's a very, very exciting future, obviously it also means a lot of pressure on skill set, right? For example, automation. When we talk about work automation, and you need to have a higher level of skill set. So if you're going to be in an industry which is very, very aggressive, it's got a high technology in the future, you have to continuously update yourself. You can't remain where you are. Your knowledge, expertise, your learning has to be continuous. So these are the 7 dimensions. Each of them has a different meaning for your career standpoint. So I want you to reflect on what I said, think about it, and maybe start researching whenever you decide to choose an industry on this 7 dimension. Thank you.